Director Patel, before you joined the FBI, you railed against it for covering up Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring. Let me refresh your memory with this clip.
It has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale? Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
3 minutes can turn a hearing room into a crime scene. At 9:47 a.m., inside Senate Intelligence Committee Room 216, Jamie Raskin walked in carrying a file thick enough to make Washington stop blinking. 2,300 pages of FBI emails, memos, directives, and internal reports tied to the Epstein investigation. Across from him sat FBI Director Kash Patel, the man in charge of the nation's top federal law enforcement agency, wearing the kind of stone-cold expression officials use when they think the room still belongs to them. But then Raskin opened the file, placed the first document on the record, and the room changed. Because this was not just another tense hearing. This was not a normal exchange between a lawmaker and a federal official. This was a public collision between congressional oversight and a bureau accused of burying questions too big, too ugly, and too politically radioactive to survive daylight. Raskin was not asking Patel about a budget line. He was not asking about a press release. He was asking why FBI correspondence from June 2019 to February 2025 appeared to show delayed investigations, suspended leads, blocked interviews, and protected names connected to Jeffrey Epstein's operation. And here is where the whole thing becomes poisonous. Raskin's central accusation was brutally simple. Field offices found leads, headquarters slowed them down, agents requested action, someone above them said wait, documents moved toward headquarters, and the public was told to trust the process.
The Rolodex, which is what everybody colloquially refers to as the Black Book, has been released.
Oh, no, you're talking about what the journalist got 5 years ago? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you were talking about there,
That's
the Black
exactly
Book
what I
under
was
the direct
talking.
control of the FBI director.
We have released more material than anyone else before. The Biden administration, Obama administration had the exact opportunities to release this material, and they never did. And if you are selling the men and women of the FBI,
Why
we're not
do you
going after
change your
child
position?
predators. Hang on, you said we're not going after child predators. 1,500 child predators arrested this year, 35% increase,
I'll reclaim my time.
4,700 child victims
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to
found.
reclaim my time if you could instruct the witness.
That is like calling 911, watching the dispatcher write down the address, and then hearing them say, "Let's not send anyone yet. This neighborhood is politically sensitive." So the real question is not whether Patel looked uncomfortable. The real question is why a child trafficking investigation allegedly needed so many filters, so many approvals, so many convenient pauses. Because when powerful names enter the file, justice should move faster, not disappear into a filing cabinet with a polite memo stapled on top. Now Raskin moved from accusation into evidence, and that is when the hearing stopped sounding political and started sounding like cross-examination. He pulled out the first document, dated June 14, 2019, from the FBI Miami field office to FBI headquarters, and the subject line alone carried enough weight to freeze the room. Epstein investigation, high-profile targets. According to Raskin, that email said investigators had identified 34 individuals connected to Jeffrey Epstein's operation, backed by witness testimony, flight records, and photographic evidence. The Miami office wanted permission to open formal investigations, which is exactly what law enforcement is supposed to do when evidence points toward powerful people. But headquarters answered 3 days later with the kind of sentence that sounds bureaucratic until you realize what it means. Not advisable at this time. Recommend holding pending further review. That is not a denial of evidence. That is not a claim that the witnesses were unreliable. That is not even an argument that the leads were weak. That is a delay order wrapped in office language, a velvet glove placed over the mouth of an investigation. And Raskin's point was clear. If the FBI had names, records, witnesses, and photographs in 2019, then the word wait was not caution anymore. It was protection. Then came the second document, dated August 10, 2019, 1 week after Jeffrey Epstein's death. Raskin described an internal memo telling field officers that the Epstein matter was considered closed. Subsidiary investigations were suspended, and evidence should be transferred to headquarters for archival purposes. Now listen to the language, archival purposes? That phrase sounds clean, professional, harmless. But in a case involving child trafficking, dead witnesses, powerful associates, and unanswered public questions, archive does not sound like filing. It sounds like burial with a government label. And this is where Patel's answer began to collapse under its own weight, because he could not simply say the FBI had no leads, not after Raskin placed the timeline right in front of him. He could not say the Bureau was aggressively pursuing every name, not if documents showed requests being suspended, delayed, or pushed upward for clearance. He could not say this was normal procedure because nothing about a list of high-profile names connected to Epstein should require political temperature checks before investigators can do
And as
their
I told
job.
you,
Really?
the investigation was limited. And let me make something crystal clear. I never said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic other people, other women, and they're not other victims. This is the investigation we were given from 2006, 7, and 8, and the search warrants from 2006, 7, and 8.
Then Raskin
That's what we're
sharpened the
working
knife
with.
with
Wait,
the
have you
February 3rd,
released all of the stuff
2025
that the
directive,
FBI has seized
allegedly
from
signed
Epstein's
by
house?
Kash Patel
The
himself.
computers, the
That
emails, the
memorandum
file
ordered
cabinets,
all
the
active
documents?
Epstein-related
What about the
case
financial
files
records? Have you
transferred
released
to
all of that?
FBI
Everything the
headquarters,
court has allowed us to
blocked
Which court are you
release.
from
talking about?
initiating
Three separate
or
federal
continuing
courts have
investigative
come in
activity
and said,
without
We're talking about the
explicit
evidence
approval
you've
from
got.
the
It's got
director's
nothing to
office,
do with what those
suspended
courts
do
have.
you have
scheduled
any
We're talking
idea
about
how the
evidence
law
and
works?
denied
Wait,
Do you want me to
pending
break the
document
law in a
requests
federal
pending
judge's
review.
order?
No, I want you to
satisfy
follow
your
your
That is
own
not a
word,
adjustment.
Director Patel.
That
You
is
said up
centralization
there
of
it was under
control.
the direct
That is the
control
difference
of the
between a
FBI
fire
director. He had the black
department
book.
sending more
Everything
Have you
people
I
released
to the
have-
building and the chief locking the garage doors while asking everyone to wait for a committee review. And when Raskin said FBI activity on Epstein-related investigations dropped 94%, with witness interviews at 0, document analysis at 0, and field investigations at 0, the word review started sounding like a chokehold. This is the moral center of the hearing, because behind every memo is not just a name in a file, but a victim who had to live with the knowledge that the system might have known more than it admitted. Behind every delayed lead is someone who trusted the government to chase the truth, not manage the optics. Behind every pending review is a child trafficking case slowly losing oxygen while powerful people keep breathing comfortably. And then came the most damaging moment. The list of 47 names, each allegedly marked with codes like political sensitivity, diplomatic relations, national security concerns, and executive branch protection. That phrase, executive branch protection, is not just suspicious, it is radioactive. Because law enforcement is not supposed to ask whether a suspect is politically convenient before deciding whether justice is allowed to move. Patel's silence made the room louder than any denial could have, and when his lawyer said Patel would invoke the Fifth Amendment, the hearing entered a different universe. The FBI director, the man responsible for federal law enforcement, was not refusing to answer because the question was silly. He was refusing because answering could incriminate him. So Raskin did not need to shout anymore because the silence had already testified. By the next morning, the hearing had already escaped the hearing room. Washington woke up to the kind of chaos that does not come from a speech, a soundbite, or one senator trying to score points. It came from paper. At 6:12 a.m., the first batch of files hit a public archive server, and suddenly the argument was no longer theoretical. People were not reacting to whispers anymore. They were reading emails, comparing dates, matching directives, and seeing the machinery of delay with their own eyes. That matters because institutions can survive anger. They can survive bad headlines. They can even survive partisan shouting. What they cannot easily survive is a paper trail that shows the same pattern repeating over and over again. Find the lead, raise the concern, move it upward, slow it down, rename the delay as review, and then ask the public to keep trusting the process.
You began the sentence, everything you have direct control over, and then you stopped that sentence. You've released everything that you have direct control over?
And I have direct control over and can lawfully release. If you're not familiar with the court orders, that's not my fault.
Oh, I'm
Go
perfectly,
look at them.
I'm
Go
perfectly
to
familiar
court.
with them, but how did we prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell?
She was prosecuted with the investigatory material.
By 7:03 a.m., an independent journalist posted screenshots of an email chain using the phrase containment priorities. Not victim priorities, not prosecution priorities, the containment priorities. And that one phrase told America exactly what kind of mindset may have been operating behind the curtain. When a child trafficking investigation becomes something to contain, the system is no longer behaving like a justice system. It is behaving like a damage control department with badges. Then came the memo discussing media strategy after Epstein's death, where officials allegedly expected public attention to decline within 6 to 8 weeks, pending what was described as controlled narrative stabilization. Now think about the cruelty hidden inside that language. While victims were still carrying the damage, while families were still asking what happened, while the public believed investigators were chasing every lead, someone inside the institution was allegedly calculating how long it would take for the outrage to cool. That is not public service. That is reputation management wearing a federal suit. And here's the part that made the silence even more damning. Nobody from the FBI rushed out with a clean denial. No one stood at a podium and said the documents were fake. No one explained the codes. No one explained why the phrase executive branch protection appeared next to names allegedly connected to Epstein-related investigative restrictions. Instead, America got the usual fog machine. We are reviewing the documents. That sentence is what officials say when denial is too dangerous and honesty is too expensive. At 9:11 a.m., former FBI analyst Daniel Mercer went on television and said the documents were authentic. He claimed that Epstein-related matters required executive-level clearance before escalation, and when asked whether that meant only inside the FBI, he paused before answering no. That pause was not dead air. That pause was a doorway. Because if clearance came from outside FBI headquarters, then the scandal was no longer simply about Kash Patel's signature. It was about whether federal law enforcement had become answerable to people whose names were too powerful to investigate. And once that question entered the bloodstream, every non-answer became evidence of something larger. By afternoon, the pressure had moved from television screens to the streets outside FBI headquarters. Protesters demanded the names. Reporters demanded explanations. Congressional offices were flooded with calls. And inside the Bureau, according to the source material, senior officials began refusing to attach their names to new directives until legal reviews were completed. That is how control collapses in Washington. Not always with a confession. Sometimes it collapses when people who once followed orders suddenly start asking whether those orders might follow them into court. Then Deputy Director Alan Rhee resigned at 2:47 p.m., saying he could not continue participating in processes that compromised the integrity of federal law enforcement. That was not a long statement. It did not need to be. One sentence was enough because in a scandal built on silence, even one honest sentence sounds like a siren. By evening, Jamie Raskin returned and said this was no longer about one man. And he was right. This was about an entire system that appeared to believe accountability was something reserved for ordinary people. The wealthy get reviewed. The powerful get protected. The victims get patience. And the public gets told to wait until the people who created the fog finish reviewing the fog. So what is the lesson here? It is not that one hearing magically fixes a broken system. It is not that one stack of documents automatically delivers justice. The lesson is darker and frankly more important. When powerful people are protected by process, delay becomes a weapon, silence becomes a strategy, and pending review becomes the locked door between victims and accountability. That is why this moment matters beyond Jamie Raskin, beyond Kash Patel, beyond one explosive exchange in a packed hearing room. My personal view is simple: a justice system that moves fast for ordinary people but slows down when famous names appear is not cautious, it is compromised. When a poor defendant misses one form, the system knows exactly how to move. When a whistleblower leaks one file, the system knows exactly how to investigate. But when 47 names connected to Jeffrey Epstein allegedly sit behind codes like political sensitivity, national security concerns, and executive branch protection, suddenly everyone needs more time, more review, more context, more silence. That is not equal justice. That is a velvet rope around accountability. And the moral insult is not just what may have been hidden from the public. It is what may have been denied to the victims. Every delayed interview meant another chance lost. Every blocked document request meant another truth pushed further away. Every official who chose institutional comfort over public honesty helped teach survivors the ugliest lesson in America. Pain speaks loudly, but power speaks louder. That is the real crime scene of this hearing. Not the marble walls. Not the cameras. Not the political theater. The real crime scene is the space between what the FBI said it was doing and what these documents suggest may have actually happened. So the question now is brutally clear. If the law cannot look powerful people in the face without blinking, then what exactly are ordinary Americans supposed to believe in? Like this video, comment your thoughts, share it everywhere, and subscribe, because until every protected name is dragged into daylight, this story is not over.